Approximately 3 weeks after it was announced that we had found a very sun-like star that came from the direction that the legendary WOW signal came from in 1977, and by sun-like, I mean a star that's almost precisely like the sun with a variation of less than 1% in almost every regard, temperature, diameter, everything. This is practically a sun clone, and I have a video linked about this subject, but as I said, about 3 weeks after this was announced, the Chinese decided to get themselves in the media talking about alien signals as well with their amazing Sky Eye telescope. Now, for those of you who don't know what this is, it is the largest telescope on the planet. It's a radio telescope half a kilometer in diameter. And according to a report published Tuesday, June 14th in Science and Technology Daily, which is the official newspaper of China's Ministry of Science and Technology, they have discovered, quote, several cases of possible technological traces in extraterrestrial civilizations from outside the Earth, unquote. And this apparently is being studied by a man called Zhang Tongxie, which is, and I think I pronounced that right, by the way, he is supposedly China's alien hunter, and he said, quote, these are several narrowband electromagnetic signals different from the past, and the team is currently working on further investigation. The possibility that the suspicious signal is some kind of radio interference is also very high, and it needs to be further confirmed and ruled out. This may be a long process, unquote. And then, shortly after the story was posted, it was deleted. What the hell? Hello, YouTube. I'm the Angry Astronaut, and this is... Now, for those of you unfamiliar with this telescope, it's also called the FAST, which stands for 500-meter Aperture Spherical Radio Telescope. Now, as I said before, this is the largest telescope in the world, the largest radio telescope, certainly, and it has been put to work since 2019, searching not only for radio signals from aliens, but any powerful radio source throughout the universe, an extremely useful thing if you're going to be studying astronomy, since there are many types of astronomical objects and phenomena that put out large amounts of radio waves, not least of which are things like black holes. That being the case, though, it was also specifically intended to search for extraterrestrial signals from other civilizations, which is something that's pretty unique. None of our radio telescopes have really been allocated towards this particular purpose, at least not publicly. It's very difficult for SETI to get dish times out, shall we say, on any radio telescope on the planet in order to search for alien signals. It's not regarded as much of a priority, and for very good reason, because no matter what we pick up, no matter how telling or intriguing the signal may be, it is too easy to dismiss it as radio interference simply because we humans put out so much radio chatter. And that being the case, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to detect a signal that is definitively artificial in origin without completely ruling out human causes. And that is going to be a very challenging thing facing SETI as time goes on. It's going to become even worse with the more radio signals and radio noise that our civilization produces. One of the obvious solutions is to put a radio telescope on the far side of the moon where it would be completely shielded from these sorts of things, but that is very unlikely to happen, at least in our lifetimes. Why? Because in my opinion, the scientific community and really our civilization isn't that interested in looking for extraterrestrial life. And frankly, at least on a subconscious level, I don't think we really want to find them. Now, I'll discuss my reasoning behind this line of thought in a moment, but really to give you a couple of details about these signals that the Chinese picked up. Two of them were picked up in 2020, and one was picked up in 2022. But what is it about a radio signal that makes it a legitimate candidate, at least according to SETI, for an extraterrestrial signal from another civilization? Well, first of all, it has to be narrowband. Artificial signals tend to be narrowband in nature, and it also has to be at the right frequency. Generally, a frequency associated with hydrogen, or the hydrogen line as it is called. Since hydrogen is the most common element in the universe, it is generally accepted that an alien civilization trying to get noticed would send out a narrowband radio signal associated with the most common element in the universe. And then finally, it needs to repeat. Now, have we picked up any signals that fit all of those categories? Well, actually, we have, and it wasn't picked up by the Chinese. In 2003, a signal was detected that checked all of the boxes. It's known as radio source SHG B02 plus 14A. Yeah, you've always got to be ready for these weird category numbers or classification numbers when you're talking about extraterrestrial signals and extraterrestrial phenomena. But this particular signal was transmitted on the hydrogen line, was narrowband in nature, and repeated 3 times. However, it was an extremely weak signal, but that's not one of the categories that SETI regards as being a game stopper or anything. But it also didn't appear to be coming from a star system of any kind, which SETI regards as a game stopper in many circumstances. And then also, whatever was generating the signal was rotating at about 40 times faster than the rotation of the Earth, assuming that it was coming from a planet, and that was the game stopper. SETI regarded this signal as coming from something so unlikely as to not be valid. But if it was an interstellar spacecraft of some kind, rotating faster than the Earth, as many of our spacecraft do, then it could have been very valid, but not as far as SETI was concerned, and then the signal was promptly forgotten. As a matter of fact, you're going to have a hard time finding it anywhere online. The only source I got it from, by the way, was John Michael Gaudier, and I strongly recommend that you check out his channel, by the way, who really thoroughly researches stuff like this. Very frustrating, something that checked all the boxes, but they found other characteristics of the signal that still ruled it out. For those of us who believe that we're not alone in the universe, this sort of stuff gets really frustrating, especially if it comes to signals that don't repeat. Now, keep in mind, our civilization has never sent out a strong narrowband signal that repeated. We've never done it, which means as far as SETI is concerned, our civilization does not exist. But let me point out another example, the signal TYC 1220-91-1. This was an extremely strong signal that broadcasted over exactly the right frequency, not the hydrogen line, but rather a specific frequency associated with the hydrogen line times pi. It was exact. From a mathematical standpoint, this is a very suspicious signal, a frequency, by the way, that our technology does not transmit on. However, it was an incredibly strong signal. When you compare it to the WOW signal of 1977, it was at least 20 times as powerful. So as far as SETI was concerned, for a signal like this, a signal that was practically howling at the sky, it needed to repeat in order to be considered valid, and it never did. However, it was coming from a sun-like star, just a little bit older, so it checked all the boxes except the repeating box. Once again, a box that our own civilization doesn't bother to check off. And why would an extraterrestrial civilization know about the repeating detail? I mean, wouldn't sending out a single signal, especially a really powerful one that was practically practically screaming artificial in nature given the frequency that it was on. Why would they need to repeat that in order to say hello to us, especially since they have no reason to believe that we even exist? The star is so far away that they have no cause to believe that there's any sort of civilization here. And by the way, this is just a couple examples out of many. Since the detection of the WOW signal, SETI has actually picked up more than a dozen unexplained signals that are either at the hydrogen line or mathematical multiples of the hydrogen line that we don't transmit on either, that have come from interstellar sources, most of them from the galactic plane, and yet none of them repeated, and so none of them are regarded as being valid. However, to say that we've been listening for all these years and we've heard nothing is a gross oversimplification, and yet that's what gets stated over and over again, and it simply isn't true. So as far as the Chinese signals are concerned, well, the more cynical amongst us might simply say that they decided to release this information in order to steal the limelight shortly after this exciting information was released about the WOW signal. Regardless of what you may think about those things and the strangely suspicious circumstances under which the story was deleted by the Chinese media, it's difficult to say what's going to come of all of this new information. In my opinion, we are simply going to forget it. The Chinese may come to some very exciting conclusions about it, but the rest of the scientific community may dismiss that simply because, well, it's China, and they're going to say whatever their government wants to say as far as a narrative is concerned. So really, are we ever going to pick up a radio signal that we can definitively say comes from an extraterrestrial civilization? Well, until the so-called Sagan standard changes, that is, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, or to be more specific, the more unlikely a certain claim is, given existing evidence on the subject, the greater the standard of proof that is expected of it. Well, in my opinion, we're never going to pick up a signal that satisfies everybody in the scientific community, or even a majority of these people. Why do I believe that? Well, it's because the existing evidence needs to change on extraterrestrial life first, and that can happen very soon if we send a manned expedition to Mars, or if the sample returns that we get from the Perseverance rover indicate that there is abundant bacterial life or perhaps even multicellular life on Mars, and subsequent discoveries on Europa and elsewhere indicate that there is life everywhere in the solar system. That makes the existence of extraterrestrial life commonplace, not extraordinary. Now, intelligent life is an entirely different leap, but if simple life can exist so readily and so easily throughout the solar system, that suggests that intelligent life can exist in great abundance as well, which means the extraordinary evidence may be a lot easier to acquire and the bar may be lowered. And frankly, I don't think that's something that our civilization wants to happen. We want to believe that the Earth is a special place, that our civilization is special and unique and precious and worth preserving, whereas in reality, we may be one of many thousands of civilizations that have gotten just to the point of self-awareness, just far enough to realize where our place is in the whole cosmic fugue, only to discover that we are insignificant, to discover that there are many other civilizations that have surpassed our achievements, and these civilizations will take no notice of us when we wipe ourselves out, as so many of our predecessors have. That is a grim reality to confront, one that I think most people really don't want to believe, and yet it may very well be true. Smash that like, hit that subscribe, and check out the description if you want to find more ways to support my channel and keep this content coming, because putting out this extraterrestrial signal stuff and extraterrestrial civilizations, I usually take a hit because it's not my most popular content, but it's one that I stubbornly want to talk about because it makes me very angry. So until we actually have this extraordinary evidence, or until the Sagan standard changes to where we are a little bit more open-minded about the ways that other civilizations may have already reached out to us and tried to say hello, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.